Hi there, I'm Howard, and this is Erik. Howard Redekopp. I'm a record producer and engineer and mixer, and I've been really fortunate to do some good work, I think. Erik agrees, and Erik's been a part. That's his job. Your job is to agree, right? Yeah. Yes, I'm sure whatever you're thinking is correct.
Yes, perfect.
But I personally have been really fortunate to have made some records that people have actually heard. And I've been fortunate enough to do them in facilities that have been pretty sort of a big part of the music industry. I made several projects with Tegan and Sarah, 2 records as a producer and an engineer, one of them as a mixer also. The So Jealous record that we did was Mushroom Studios here in Vancouver, which rests in peace as of last week. And there was I've worked there actually before the Neve console came, and then the Neve console left. Prior to that, there was a custom built Universal Audio console that was custom built by Charlie Richmond, and now, well, anyways, it doesn't matter. But the So Jealous record was tracked there, and I mixed it at the Armory. Great rooms, great gear, mic preamps, etc. Also did another Tegan and Sarah record at Sound City in Van Nuys, California. And of course, many people have seen the movie Sound City, and it rings true. Everything that all those much more famous than I people talk about in that room, it definitely, there's a feeling in there. But the Neve console, and I actually really appreciate that about the movie, is that it's so much about the Neve. I've heard people kind of gripe about that. It's like, they talk about the console so much. I'm like, yeah, but if you know anything, that's what you want to talk about, because the console was amazing, right? It's like, yeah, exactly. So I've used many Neves, and also made records at the Warehouse here in Vancouver where the Air Neve lives, and that's a slightly different variety of Neve. And then, we always have access to a 1081 or a 1064 or a 1073 or something like that. So we're using a lot of the old Neve stuff. And Erik also, besides working with me a bunch, and I get to rely on his help a lot, works in a bunch of other places. We're talking about, we also wanted to talk about the Sonic Farm stuff, mostly the Creamer. And I'm going to let Erik talk about that because he uses it as much as I do. I mean, there's one here, but there's also one in a couple other studios here in town. There are many studios in town, but the other one, you work at Afterlife a bunch. I'll let you talk for yourself.
Yeah, Afterlife Studios. It's also in Vancouver. It's kind of more of an underground studio. It's a pretty big room. Do lots of big drums there. And the first time I used the Creamer was about 2 years ago. It came in, Boris brought it in, and first thing I ever did was use it on overheads for drums, and it was just this amazing experience. My go-to mic seems to be a SM69 Neumann stereo mic. I went straight into it without using any EQ or compression, going to tape. We have an MM1200. Amazing. It just sounded so great, so big. Very flexible too, and it was very easy to dial in. At first, when you look at it, you see all of these options, but when you dig into it, it's so easy to really define what sound you want. And when those faders come up, it's just glorious. And you move on to every other instrument and continue using it. Piano was the next thing I put it on. Just absolutely glorious. It's such a great sound, and like I said, you can. It's so versatile. You can use like the trial or the Pentode modes of the tube, and it's you can kind of get some teeth to it or whatever. If you recording acoustics, any acoustic instrument I've tried to put through it. I've used it on mandolin, dobro. Acoustic guitars, electric guitars. It's really one of those preamps that you can use on anything, and that's its selling feature for me.
You got to talk about the fact that you're a bass player and that it sounds awesome on bass. Because you are a bass player, so you know, it's like He's not going to talk about the one instrument that he plays really well.
Actually, that particular session board had also brought in the DI.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I had plugged in the DI just straight in. I didn't even use an amp on that session. I just went in DI straight to tape, and it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's a bass guitar. It's kind of a one-stop shop. You don't need anything else. And obviously we have one here, and use it pretty much on everything.
Including on the mix, because it's the plus version, so you can run the line through. And since I started using it on mixes, I don't even use the tape machine anymore on mixes, because sometimes the tape machine can take away as much as it gives, and the Creamer seems to just kind of give that little bit. And again, you can change the settings on it. We often refer to it as the Desert Island mic preamp, or the Swiss Army mic preamp. It's kind of like you can. There's a lot of different things you can do with it, and it's pretty cool. But also, like, having come up through a whole bunch of different experiences and different tube mic preamps as well. As I've used Telefunken V72s, V76s, and very different ones, because none of them are ever going to sound the same. Mm. And there's always sort of like a specific application for it, and the Telefunken tube, or the Universal Audio tube console that was in Mushroom Studios back in the early 90s. There was a specific application where that was awesome and that sounded really good, but it didn't work on everything. And that's the cool thing about the Creamer, is that it kind of works on everything, because you can just sort of change and tweak it and make it sort of more suitable for that one application.
Absolutely.
And hey, what's not to like about tubes? That's the other thing too, is you talk about tubes and it's like, ooh, it's warm. It's like, I've used enough shitty. Sorry.
This isn't going on TV. You can swear. Yeah.
I can swear. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it's not the radio.
I've used enough crappy tube mic preamps in my time.
Shit.
I can?
Yeah.
I've used enough shitty mic preamps in my time, and tube mic preamps specifically, to know kind of that you can get all caught up in it being, ooh, it's vintage, or ooh, it's tube. And even right there, you can find an old V72 and have somebody rack it up for you and do a bad job, and it's not going to sound good. Mm-hmm. Or rack it up properly, and maybe there's something wrong with that module because it's 50 years old. And 50? Probably? I don't know. Telephones, V72s, V76s.
Definitely,
I'm no nerd. I don't know. I keep track of these things. But the point is that I've used enough of those sort of dodgy tube mic preamps, whether they be modern or vintage, to know that it's always been kind of scary to get into tube mic preamps. I'm kind of like, valve-based. But that thing's been sitting there for 2 years, and it's never let me down. So it's pretty awesome.
And using it almost every single day.
Yeah, pretty much, because if I'm not recording in here, I'm mixing, and when I'm mixing, mixes are going through there, it's on there, and it's the only mic preamp I've bought. It's the only mic preamp I've spent money on. I came close to buying 3-4 other different mic preamps, and just never really, because I had the console, and the mic pre's in there sound pretty good, and I've got friends that lend me Neves, and we borrow Kurt's Neves, or this, that, and the other thing, and it's sometimes a band shows up and somebody's got an API rack or something like that, and we just use that. And I've never felt the need to dive into mic preamps, because we're doing bed tracks at a larger studio.
But that being said, when we go to those larger studios, that's one of the only pieces of gear that we bring with us.
It's true. It's hilarious. Nothing comes out of the rack, but we end up taking that with us, because there's some studios that like Warehouse is an example where. Everything's got a transformer in there. Mm-hmm. That whole desk is transformer mic pre's. So if you want something that's got a different flavor,
better bring it.
Got to bring it with you.